Hey guys, so thanks for tuning in. Hopefully if you don't tune in live, you can see the recording of this after I post it. I have a lot of people that ask me what I do. And I have a lot of people that ask me career-wise, what do you do specifically? Because I post a lot of content whenever it comes to personal development, whenever it comes to mental health, whenever it comes to God and spirituality, and ultimately whenever it comes to purpose-driven content. That is mostly of what I post. So I'm going to give you a really brief summary of why I got into what I do, how, and what exactly it is that I do. So I have lived a very interesting life. I've had a lot of different career paths. I've had a lot of ups. I've had a lot of downs. I've had a lot of hardships. I've had a lot of heartbreaks, and ultimately I hit a point in my life to where I figured out that I had been running away from who I was truly meant to be my entire life. One word really, I feel like describes up until the point of having this breakthrough, who I was, and that was hopeless. From a very young age, after really digging in and really going through therapy, going through and analyzing, going through and journaling, and just looking into my psyche and where I came from, looking in my backpack, if you will, I figured out that pretty much my entire life, I was only doing things because I wanted to be accepted. I wanted other people to affirm me. I wanted other people to like me, but I never actually liked myself and who I was, so I always had to make it sound a little bit better than what it was. And that over a lifetime can become very, very draining. And so I hit a low point in my life to where I was just like, you know what? I'm over it. I got to go figure out who I am. I got to go figure out what I'm running away from. And I got to figure out ultimately what is the purpose in my life. I'm a millennial. And so I feel like a lot of people in our generation, especially the younger generation as well, you know, they really want to find purpose in everything that they do. And it's really hard, and we have a really hard time struggling with that whenever it comes to, you know, us comparing ourselves to other people and not looking at our race, but looking at other people's races and expectations of what we should be doing. And so what I did is, after doing a lot of digging, doing a lot of self-improvement, and having about a 2-year process of really digging in, I took all of that information I learned, all that hardship, all of those imperfections, everything that I dug into, and I turned it into a training program. So, you know, what is my why? Well, my why is hope. I share stories of seemingly insurmountable circumstances in my own life to allow Christ's light to shine through all of my imperfections, to let anybody know that regardless of where you're at, regardless of what you're going through, there's always hope, period. What do? Well, I do purpose coaching, and I do process development in organizations. I work with entrepreneurs to help them really figure out why they got into the career path they're in and what to do with that. And I help implement processes that help reduce friction and increase efficiency in both personal lives as well as professional organizations. So that's why, how, and what I do. This program specifically is more based on finding your personal purpose. And so today we're just going to be going over the basics. We're going to talk a little bit about, you know, how you got where you're at today. If you're sitting in your chair, if you're tuning in, how did you get there? Why did you get there? Why did you choose to go into work today? If you're in Oklahoma, why did you choose to stay home instead of going into work whenever it came to the weather that was coming in? Well, let's dive straight into this. The way that I start this is I ask questions. My word last year was curiosity. And through curiosity, I've learned the more you ask, the more you learn about yourself and about other people. So we start off just asking questions. The other thing is that we want to keep it very, very simple. When it comes to finding your purpose, we can allow our purpose to be defined by so many different things, so many different narratives. And really, the more simple we get it, especially whenever it comes to restarting or setting a new baseline, the better. And so I start off this training by asking 8 questions. And the key elements of this, you're only allowed to answer with one word, period. Each one of these questions you have to answer with one word. I've sent this out to a lot of you guys before. If you ever want the questionnaire, let me know. I'd love to send it to you. But for the purpose of this training, I'm going to go through these questions. If you want to do this practice, then pause the live or go back and watch it. You know, write them out and then revisit it and restart the training so that you can understand a little bit more why. So what are the 8 questions? Well, number 1, who are you? If you were going to use one word to describe who you are, what would that be? What do you do? One word. What is your purpose? Again, one word. What word describes what others think about you? What do you admire the most? What is your life goal? why are you here in this meeting today or on this Instagram Live or watching this or perusing on social media? And then I want you to list out 5 things you're grateful for. Okay, 1 word each, the 5 things you're grateful for. Preferably you do this with a pen and a piece of paper. The reason we want to do that is it allows you to really think through and process this information without writing it out. So you would write, who are you? And then you'd write out 1 word. You can't write out multiple words whenever it comes to the answer, just 1 word. You can think through it, but just 1 word for each one. So typically I give everybody 5 minutes to go through this. If you're watching this, go ahead and start that process. But I'm going to carry on through the training. And, it's interesting whenever it comes to this. Some of these people struggle with, some of them don't. But what I want you to look for is I want you to look for commonalities whenever it comes to your answers. And the reason is because ultimately whenever you're going through this and you're asking these questions, the thought in your head is if you're answering these, I'm sure is why? Why did I answer those questions that way? Here's a good one. Whenever people walk up to you in a social setting and they say, what do you do? What is your automatic response? Typically, we just talk about our work, right? We talk about that as being our identity. I've started this process to where I want to break automation. And by breaking automation, what I mean is people ask me, what do you do? And I just say, regards to what? Talking about my hobby? Talking about my spiritual life? Are you talking about my career? Like, what do you mean? And it's really interesting as you go through those questions and you really think about it, you start going, why? Why did I answer those things this way? Or maybe you haven't thought that. Well, let's talk a little bit about why. It's a simple question, why? But the base behind everything that we do and everything we have done, one could argue it's the first question ever posed. Why? My buddy Dave Goodman actually said that to me one time. Behind every action we take, there's a why behind it, period. There's a reason you picked your meal today. There's a reason you picked the workout you did today or didn't choose to work out, depending on who you are. And there is a reason you chose to be sitting here on this live today. Whether I've got 5 people, whether I've got 1 person, I don't really care. There's a reason why you showed up. There's a reason you drove into work today. There's a reason if you're in Oklahoma and the sirens went off at 6 o'clock this morning, all of a sudden your cortisol levels kick up because you automatically are like, oh wow, there's probably bad weather coming, right? Why is that? Why do we make these decisions? Why do we do what we do every day? Why do I wake up grumpy? Why do I go to bed grumpy? Why do I stay in a relationship I'm not happy with? Why do I work a job that I don't find fulfillment in? Why? Do you ever ask yourself that? Well, let's talk a little bit about why that may be. Because if there's a why behind everything, why don't we ask it more? Well, me plus my past experiences, right? So me plus my past experiences equals why I do X. There's a beautiful little process called synaptic pruning that I get into in one of the later sessions, which is in your young adolescent years and even as you get older, between the ages of 1 and 5, you have 30,000 neurons a day that are being created. How beautiful is that? 30,000. So you're saying yes to one thing, no to another. And the process of synaptic pruning is basically every time you say yes to one thing, you're saying no to something else. You're pruning off behaviors or actions based off of the things that you're saying yes to. So if you said no to sushi, that means that next time you get introduced to sushi, you're probably not going to engage with it because you've told yourself no. If you don't like taking risks, you're very risk averse. The more that you don't take risks, the less likely that you are going to be to take risks. That's a neuro pathway that you're canceling out. And you're saying, well, when this situation presents itself, I'm going to react this way. But you're pruning off one thing to say yes to another. That's what forms our identity. Like, here's a very simple process. A dog bit me. What happens when a dog bites you? Very young age, right? Or maybe you saw someone else get bit by a dog. Well, it's pretty simple. Dog bite hurts, right? You're like, dang, that hurt. Well, what could that develop in you? Well, scared of dogs. Have you ever met that friend that's just like, oh, I'm terrified of dogs? There's a reason they're terrified of dogs. It's just not naturally instinctual. It's based off of their previous experiences. There's an argument for nature versus nurture, right? Like there is like a certain sense of God giving us this ability to be able to sense things, but it plays a part in it. But typically our actions are going to dictate why we do what we do. If you're miserable in a job today, or if you're miserable in a relationship, I'm sorry to tell you, nobody made you do it. Nobody made you get into it. Nobody is making you stay in it. It is an active choice. What's a little bit deeper one? Well, let's look at a business perspective, right? This is personal, it's very basic. Well, simple process number 2. You were sold an item or service, and you were made a promise. Whenever you go on Amazon and you find the package and you're like, oh man, that just looks exactly like what I need, right? Exactly like what I need. You get it in the mail and the item and service didn't meet my expectations. Let's look at the political structure right now, right? We got an election. You were sold a politician. You were sold an idea. The item and service, or the idea, the politician didn't meet your expectations. What's going to happen? Well, I hate / don't trust politicians anymore. Or in the situation of maybe you were going to buy a car and then you get a lemon. It's going to be really hard for you to trust salespeople in the future. There's a reason why you feel this way. If you're in business and you're dealing with a complicated client that's sitting there and just throwing up every flashbang that you can think of, there's a reason they're doing it. I promise you, it's based off of whatever they've experienced previously. And we allow these things to happen to us without breaking the automation. And then we're very easily manipulated. So let's look at a little bit more in-depth process, okay? This happens to us all the time, right? We're going to go reverse. So we're going to start with where we're at and how we got there, okay? So let's look at, maybe yesterday. Maybe you had a bad day. Have you ever thought about, why did I have a bad day? Or do you just go to bed mad? So many times we just go to bed mad, right? We don't control that narrative. We just doom scroll on Instagram or choose to distract ourselves or choose to not acknowledge the fact that we had a bad day or why we had a bad day. And then we go to bed, we wake up in a bad mood again, and then that just strings together bad days, right? It's easy to buy into negative. So how could we get here? Well, it might be as simple as, before that, I feel totally exhausted and everyone is getting on my nerves, right? That led up to the end of the day. Before that, I felt real uneasy today for some reason, right? So you see this process of feel uneasy, I'm totally exhausted, I had a bad day. What happened before that? Why would you keep on wondering if the world is going to end? Well, probably because at the start of the day, I watched the news and it talked about the world ending. How many of you wake up and just flip on the TV, or wake up and just turn on social media, or just wake up and allow things outside of yourself to tell you what to think and how to feel? One of the best activities that I can give you right now, one of the best tools is every single day I wake up, before I let my feet hit the ground, as funny as it might seem, I find 5 things I'm grateful for. I don't care how small it is. I don't care how bad. I don't care. I just say, God, thank you so much for this. God, thank you so much for this. Just 5 things you're grateful for. Don't just roll over and grab your phone. Don't just flip on the TV. Don't just jump into action. Take a minute for yourself and start telling yourself the way your day is going to be. And if you renew your mind daily like that, you will be shocked at what will start transpiring in your life. But it is a choice, and typically we just allow things outside of ourselves that tell us what to think, how to feel, and that results in a bad day. Well, let's look at business. Maybe you're sitting there, maybe you're in sales. Okay, this is a good one for salespeople. Maybe you got into sales and you're like, man, I just keep on getting into sales. Well, why did you get into sales in the first place? Well, maybe it looks something like this. I got into sales because I am good at talking to people. Need to make money for my car so that hopefully one day I can open a garage. I will say, whenever it comes to salespeople, professional salespeople, some people that are great at it, some people that just love the process, but I can't tell you how many times I've talked to someone that's outside salesperson and they're doing it so that one day they can do something else. Are you one of those people? Are you one of those people that wake up every single day, you go to a job, so that one day you can do what you're passionate about? One day you can work on a garage because your actual passion is your car? How do you get there? Why? Why do I keep on telling myself, well, I'll just keep on doing this dead-end job or this dead-end career so that one day I can do this? Now, I will say, whenever it comes to salespeople, I know some salespeople that are just professional salespeople, and they just love it. But if you're not one of those people, or maybe you are a doctor, maybe you're a nurse, maybe you're a stay-at-home mom, maybe you're I don't know, whatever your thing is, and you just don't find purpose in it. Why would that be? Well, maybe before that, if you were a salesperson, you waited tables for years because it was the easiest way to make money so that I could work on my car. There's a commonality forming here, right? Car. The car is the identity that you're working for. I did not go to college because I didn't see the point in studying and didn't have good grades because I was always working on my car. Well, clearly, Your value is that car, right? I always knew the answer on the math test, but I didn't write out my problems because I would rather not use a method and just figure it out. By the way, this is very, very along the lines of me. Not cars wise, but I always, I had sales, I waited tables, I didn't go to college. I personally did all these things, but I did it because I always wanted to do this. But why? And my dad is not a mechanic. My dad is great, by the way, but I'm just using this as an example. My dad was a mechanic, took his work home, and was always problem solving, but never used the manual. Now, I will say there's nothing wrong with this whenever it comes to, especially today, like you don't have to necessarily go to college to be successful, but there's a reason that your value is cars. It's because you saw your dad working on cars. There's a reason that maybe you can't put a system together to open the garage because you never used the manual and you didn't want to apply yourself. I know me personally, until the last 2 or 3 years, I take that back. I ran a service company for about 8 years, and during that time, I was forced to actually develop processes. But previous to that, dude, I never developed processes. I was terrible at it. I was god-awful. And I sure didn't know how to, as an independent contractor, I didn't know how to do my taxes or anything. And I never wanted to take the time to ask anybody because I thought I'd be a burden. But my dad he was always a problem solver. He always just figured things out. My dad is also highly educated, but growing up, where you come from, what the experience you had will dictate this. Okay? So you can, whatever, your thing is, you can put in here, but you can start seeing this formulation, right? You can start seeing, maybe I do this because of what I was taught growing up. Let's do the next one. This one's a little tough. This is for you overachievers out there. This is for the people that really feel stuck. This is me. I will never meet my goals or be as good as other people. The only value I have is how hard I work, and it'll never be good enough. Have you ever told yourself that? I will never meet my goals or be as good as other people. The only value I have is how hard I work, and it'll never be good enough. If you're there, we've all been there. High achievers, overachievers, anybody. It's easy today, especially with social media, to fall into that trap. It's really easy to look at everybody else's perfectly polished life and go, man, I'm just not making it. There's a certain healthy amount of yearning for something greater. But if you're just looking at things outside of yourself to find that affirmation, it's not okay. How'd I get there? I feel lost because I work so hard but can never find peace in my life. I need other people to like me and appreciate me. This is me. People pleaser. Fixer. I was always working on other people because I didn't want to work on myself. It's hard to admit, but it's true. Because I just wanted to be liked. I just wanted people to appreciate me. I just wanted to feel accepted. Because I didn't know who I was and I was hopeless. I always needed to make it a point to let everyone know how great I am. I work really hard at everything, but I have underlying anger issues. Now, whenever it comes to anger issues, anger is interesting. It's sneaky. It goes back to control, right? Controlling the narrative, making everybody think that you're perfect, presenting this image of perfection, And it's really interesting whenever you look at that because so many men especially, I'll speak to the men, if you find that anger just welling up inside you, if you feel that anger just drop inside of you and then you go find alcohol or you go find pornography or you go find some escape, video games, whatever it is, whenever you get anger just to escape so you don't have to deal with the anger, at some point it's going to come out. The sooner you figure out why you're getting angry, the sooner you figure out why that insecurity is so deeply rooted, the sooner you figure out why you're not speaking your mind and you're not asking for help, the sooner you're going to start working through it and the sooner you can actually heal. You have to allow yourself to feel in order to heal. It's part of it, guys. And girls, You know, if you've always had guys, if you're a lady and you're watching this and you've always felt like your entire world is based off of your looks, or your entire world is based off of how you project yourself, and you're constantly worried about just polishing this perfect image so that you'll be accepted because you don't think that anybody actually wants you for who you are, it's a lie. And all of us have felt this way at some point. We fall into the trap on a daily basis because we're not perfect. And accepting the fact that we're not perfect, that's a part of the process. But how did you get here? Like, why do I feel this way? I don't understand, Adam. Like, why do I feel that way? Well, it's pretty simple. If you look at the way you grew up, it might be this way. Again, like, it's not necessarily this way, guys. My mom was always quiet. My dad always shouted at me to do better from my earliest memory. This was not me, by the way. I want to make sure I make that clear. But this typically, in some sort of way, maybe your parents weren't emotionally available. Maybe you were neglected. Maybe you didn't have parents. Maybe you didn't get the right kind of attention. Or maybe on the flip side of that, maybe you grew up in what you thought was a dream childhood, but you're getting older and older, and for some reason you can't have a successful relationship, or you don't have intimacy with your partner. Maybe your parents needed to be a little bit more transparent with each other. Maybe they just were completely avoidant whenever it came to conflict, and you sensed it. We all have baggage of some kind. All of us. Some it's greater than others. Some of us figure it out sooner than others. But so many times, especially today, we can just avoid, distract, so we don't have to feel. And so many times, you know, if you're one of those people, we get stuck here whenever it comes to our parents. We get stuck whenever it came to our circumstances. The step in ownership that I want you to take, and the step in ownership is realizing the fact that maybe your ex that treated you terribly, maybe they got treated terribly. Maybe your parents growing up, my mom's parents never made her feel good enough. My dad's parents never told him good job. It's learned behavior, guys. Synaptic pruning. I fall into this still to this day. I've gotten a lot better. I go to therapy. I picked a therapist that tells me what I need to hear, not what I want to hear. I'll tell you that. But whenever you start realizing these things, you start realizing these triggers, and you don't just blow them off and just catastrophize them or become, you know, part of the victim Olympics, which is something else that I get into during the training that you don't want to fall into. It allows you to start taking ownership over yourself. It allows you to start taking control of your life. When I say taking control, it doesn't mean that you become a control freak and a narcissist where you control every single little thing and narrative. I mean, like, you can choose to intentionally change. You can choose to intentionally live the life that God chose you to live. But it takes a little bit of ownership over your actions. But you got to dig in. How do we dig in? What does that look like? Because, you know, some of us, we get trapped where it's like, I don't want to go back to those painful memories. I started writing a book. It'll be done one of these days. I can't tell you when, but I started this about 8 years ago. And it's called The Backpack Theory. It's my podcast. If you've heard it, I'm going to plug it right now. It's on Spotify, YouTube. The Backpack Theory is pretty simple. From the moment you're born, you're handed a backpack. Period. I don't care where you are. I don't care where in the world. You're handed a backpack. And through the years, we use that backpack to store information related to ourselves. You come out of the womb, pop, you're handed it. Maybe you're born in India. Maybe you're born in China. Maybe you're born wherever. Like, you are handed a backpack. From the moment you come out, actually before that, whenever you're in the womb, you start getting programmed based off the nutrients that are going into you. You hear things, you feel things. They've done studies whenever it comes to the womb. Whenever it comes to a child going through that pregnancy process, and if there's trauma, if there's anger, whatever the mother's feeling, the child will feel as well. So, I mean, this starts from the moment that you go through conception. And it's just part of who you are. However, how often are we checking the bottom of our backpacks? Because what happens if you, I don't know if you're a backpacker, if you've ever gone backpacking, or maybe you just go to school, right? What happens if you never check the bottom of your backpack? What happens if you just go through life and let's say down here, you get angry? Well, no, it's all right. I'm just not going to talk about it. I'm not going to tell anybody. And then maybe you go through some kind of abuse. Well, I'm not going to talk about it. I'm not going to tell anybody about it. I'm just going to hold on to it. And then maybe you feel like you got rejected by the person that you really cared about. Well, I'm not going to talk about it. All those narratives start building up. The more they build up, the less you're going to be able to move forward, because a healthy backpack is always being sorted through and utilized to carry the things into one adventure and then pack the things that are needed for the next. You have to unpack that backpack at some point. If you just allow those hurts, if you allow those burdens to just sit there, they're going to control your narrative. They're not going to put you in a position to take ownership over your life. If we don't regularly empty out our backpack, well, what happens? We don't know what we're carrying on to or holding on to. Our backpack is our subconscious. It's your subconscious and your unconscious mind. It's always there in our lives, and if we keep it weighed down with the negative emotions or bricks, it makes life really hard to go through. If you went through heartbreak, if you got fired from a job, if your company shut down, if you're an entrepreneur and you went bankrupt, and you don't deal with it, and you just allow those negative emotions to put you in positions to be triggered all the time, you're never going to be able to grow. You're never going to be able to move forward with a healthy backpack. You got to dig into this stuff. I love therapy. I'm a big advocate. The one thing that I'm not an advocate for is therapists that just affirm people and just say, oh, it's okay. It's okay. There's a place for that. But if you really want to heal, you got to have hard conversations. First, start with yourself by journaling. It's the number one thing you can do. Second, go read a book in relation to what topic you're unpacking. It's unbiased. 3, after you've done that, then go talk to somebody whenever it comes to friends. Let them know what you're going through. Go find support groups. And then finally, go to therapy. If you really want to dig out, invest in yourself. Go find a therapist that won't tell you what you want to hear, but what you need to hear. Because we're in a world today to where everybody wants to tell you, oh, it's okay, it's okay. If you want to heal, sometimes you got to face the ugly truth first before you can start that healing process. What's in your backpack? So, what's the course purpose? Why am I telling you this? Why do I lead into it? Well, the ultimate purpose of this training is to help guide individuals to understand their why in life. There's 3 whys, okay? Number 1, personal, spiritual, and higher purpose. This is the one typically we don't dig into. Typically, we go straight to our career. You go through high school. What are you going to do when you grow up, right? Well, I'm going to go be a firefighter. I'm going to go be an attorney. Or I'm going to go be a, surf instructor. A lot of times we don't figure out what it is that we actually want. We're just doing things based off of automation of what we've been told that we're supposed to do. So digging in and figuring out, what is it? Like, what is your why? Simplifying it down. Simplifying it. Realizing it might change. You got your personal, you got your spiritual. What is your higher power? I believe in God. I believe in Jesus. I go to church. I've got a strong walk with Him. I pray every day. I've seen it transform my life. I'm not telling you got to do it my way. If you hear something I say and you want to hear more about it, sure, I'd love to introduce you. But whether you're an atheist, whether you're a Buddhist, whether you're a Muslim, whatever your thing is, like, you have to have a higher purpose. You got to understand that it's not just about you. It's about more than you. It's things outside of you. But you got to figure out who you are first before contributing to this. Number 2, your career and business. If your entire identity is your career and business, your career and business fails, guess what happens to your identity? If your money's not bad, money's great, wealth is great, capitalism is great, but if you're just doing it all for money so that people will like you, it doesn't work. I've been around a lot of people that have a lot of money. Typically, the people that worked their entire life just to have money, they just want to buy their friends. Dude, being wealthy is great. Being smart with finances is great. But only if you understand what your purpose is and what you're going to do with it. If you're just going straight to your career so that you can say it, so that people will like you, do you even like yourself? Number 3, art, hobby, enjoyment, relationships, community. How do you take this and how do you invest that into your community. Like, what do you do with this after you have it? Art, the reason I think art's important is everybody needs to express themselves in some way. I don't care if you draw, I don't care if, me, I do woodworking. I love it. It's something that I can invest in. It's something that I can just go create. We were made to create. And so often we just fall into automate, right? We just go in this automated system. We don't actually create anything. We just ingest things. You have to create. What is your art? How are you using that in your life? How do we go through this? Well, we just went through the basics, right? It's pretty simple. Understand why. Understand that there is a reason behind everything we do. That was the whole purpose of this first session. Number 2, building our system. How do you build a mental health system? How do you build a physical health system? How do you build a spiritual system? And why? Like, why do you work out? Do you work out just so you can look ripped? I know a lot of guys that have been in the training industry and they've gotten shredded and they're still empty. It's a pretty shell. What is it inside? Why are you doing it? Mental health. Like, how do you start working through these things? It's important. Spiritual health. How do we contribute to society as a whole? How is everything connected? Disciplines, habit stacking, small little tiny wins. How do you eat an elephant? It's a rhetorical question. Understanding how to conquer your day, having a power hour in the morning. That goes back to Robin Sharma and kind of what he teaches with a power hour. A lot of people have said this stuff. This is all coming from a lot smarter people than I am, but these are things that I found in my life that really help out. TVI. I created TVI. It's a time value index. Where's your time going? What are you spending your time doing every day? It's a lot of fun. You track your time for 30 days, every single activity. You will be shocked at how much time you spend on activities that you don't think you're spending time on. And then you start realizing where your time is going, which is your most valuable commodity. Then we go through our why. We talk about our why. We talk about letting go of our false why and embracing who we're created to be and then implementing that into our lives. So this is the personal why. Career-wise, why this path? Why are you on the career path based off of what your personal why is? Making my business / career legit, whether you want to be an entrepreneur, whether you want to become the best at your craft, making this legit, becoming the best, understanding perception, understanding the way you view yourself based off of what your why is imperative whenever it comes to being the best at what you want to be. Professional services, building your team of paid advisors, understanding having a CPA, understanding having a financial advisor, understanding having maybe a life coach are all important things. If you want to maximize your success, invest in yourself. And then reviewing our why. This works. Why does this work with this? Why do all these things work? Why am I doing it? Where am I going towards? We have to figure out our business and career. Then we're going to go into community. Instant gratification. We live in an instant gratification society. If I don't get it tomorrow, I don't want it. Sorry to tell you, it's not the way life works. Social media works that way. Amazon works that way. Prayer is the most powerful thing that we have at our disposal. But it doesn't come instantly, but it is powerful. How do we break out of the instant gratification now that we've understood how to work towards something? Art. Like I said earlier, I think it's important that you have your own art expression. Relationships, community. Once you start going through this, and after you actually start growing, something that you're going to notice, people that don't want to change, people that are stuck in their ways, people that are intimidated by your change are going to start falling off. And you're going to have to be okay with that. It's part of growth, guys. If you look at these levels, right? If you look at a ladder, there's one rung, there's the next rung, there's the next rung. Every time you step up the ladder, you're going to have to leave something behind, and sometimes that's people. And it can get lonely for a while. Like if you quit drinking, right? Or maybe quit smoking. Or maybe you quit participating in any activity that the people you hang out with do so that you can grow. If those people aren't ready to let go of it, sometimes you got to let go of them and hope that they catch up. And that's hard in relationships. I'm not telling you to abandon people. I'm not telling you you can't still associate with them, but the 5 people you spend the most time with is who you will become. And then guess what? The 5 people that are spending time with those people you're hanging out with is also who you will become. So who do you surround yourself with so you can get to the next level? And I know if you're watching this, there's probably at least one person you're thinking of that, man, I don't know what to do with that person. I would encourage you, go have a hard conversation with them. Or don't have a conversation with them all, and just, if they want to catch up, they'll catch up. But don't hold yourself back hoping that someone's going to catch up. Prayer is really powerful for that, by the way. Last, living your why. Week 12, session 12. After we go through all this, how do we live this out? I told you guys earlier, my why is hope. I share stories of seemingly insurmountable circumstances in my own life to allow Christ's light to shine through all of my imperfections. Not my perfections, all of my imperfections. I want to let you guys know I'm imperfect. So that you understand, regardless of where you're at, regardless of what you're going through, there's always hope, period. If you look for it. If you embrace who you were created to be. My hope, and I live every day, or I try to live this way. I'm not perfect, I make mistakes. My desire would be that if you're watching this video, or if I'm recording this video and whoever watches it is the last person to hear me speak, and they get the opportunity to speak at my eulogy, that whenever they do, they don't talk about, man, he had a cool shirt on, or man, he drove a nice car, or man, like he was really, I hope that they say, you know what, that dude really inspired hope in my life. And I wake up every single day getting to do that. I don't know what your purpose is. I don't know what your drive is. But the sooner you figure that out, the sooner you realize that you were made for more. Not to be ungrateful for where you're at, but to realize that there's more out there if you choose to look for it. The sooner you can wake up every day excited. I promise you it works. If you've gone through this and you're like, wow, that's crazy. Maybe go back and revisit those 8 questions again. See if they changed it all. See if there's commonalities popping up. These are all very insightful. I've sent these to a lot of people. It's very interesting to hear the answers, especially before and after this training. Here's some applications and resources. Number 1, Michael A. Singer, The Untethered Soul. Very easy. I listen to audiobooks. I'm on number 36 of the year. Listen to an audiobook. Take notes. The Untethered Soul. Very simple. Simon Sinek, Start with Why. One of the main reasons I started this program. Simon talks about why, how, and what you do. So many people know what they do. They understand somewhat how they do it, but a lot of times they don't understand why. Especially if you work in a large organization and you just feel like you're just kicking rocks over and over and over again. And you're showing up to your cubicle every day. Like, why are you doing it? Go ask. Richard Rohr, Immortal Diamond, talks about the death of ego. This one's hard for me. It's one that I have to read over and over and over again to keep myself in check. Podcast, Backpack Theory Podcast. I told you about earlier. It's my podcast. I'm going to plug myself. That was really what got me started on this journey, was started having these transparent conversations with people and also realizing that they went through stuff. They don't have it all together, and they constantly want to learn new things. You never know the story that might connect with you, right? The Diary of a CEO, Stephen Bartlett. A really good podcast. Stephen Bartlett has a lot of just great insight, great people on there, asks really good questions. He's a British dude, so it makes it more interesting to listen to as well. And, that's the end of my first training. If this is something that's impacted you, if this is something that you're like, wow, I would love to hear from you. Send me a message, shoot me a DM. If it's something that you would love to go through with me in more detail or go through a group session, let me know. I'd love to let you know what that's like. I also have a school. I don't know if you've ever heard of school, skool.com. It's micro-learning. And my school is Purpose Coaching Institute. It is PCI. And you can go on there, and I've started a community of people that want to grow. They want to find purpose in their life. It's free to sign up. You can go log in, sign up today. Super easy to do. But yeah, that's it, guys. And regardless of whether you go through this and regardless of whether or not you choose to go through my program or whatever, I'll just encourage you, if you're miserable, if you're not happy, if you don't find purpose, if you keep on telling yourself, well, one day I'll be happy once I have this, God's got more in store for you. Period. You weren't created to live in misery. Doesn't mean you're not going to have hardship. Doesn't mean you're not going to have bad days. Doesn't mean that tragedy's not going to happen. But you can't let your circumstances dictate your truth. Because your circumstances are always going to change. Thanks for tuning in. Love you guys. Appreciate you. Till next time.